podcast Knowledge Empowers. As always, with you is me, Kat. Annyeonghaseyo. Then we have Baruch.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we have Kolaj.
Dobre rano, good morning, everyone.
The motivation level was somewhere between 7 to 8. You are going down. Substituting.
Always trying something, you know.
Yeah. Getting me surprised every time. I have to say, guys, that I don't know whether it's the blood pressure, the weather pressure, or what's going on, but I just want to sleep so hard that it's just unbelievable. So let's hope we will not yawn during this podcast a lot.
We will not.
Well, hopefully not, because we are going to talk about one sort of a hot topic, and I think that most of the people consider it hot. I would say, when I say a word conflict, how does it resonate with you? What is your feelings, thinkings, whatsoever? What comes to mind?
Okay. I'm not gonna answer because last time when we were discussing, and that's what I thought are conflicts, and then you guys were like, no, those are challenges. So now I want to hear the proper explanation.
Now, I want to know. No, seriously, the description has nothing to do with what it evokes in you.
Okay.
So how does it feel or think, or what's come to your mind? Like one word, when I say conflict, what's in your mind?
Something bad.
Yes, I think because of our culture, the first thing we think of is something bad, like something you want to avoid and you don't want to deal with conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some, arguing, angry people and such stuff.
Or a silent mode, which is even worse than angry people. Silent treatment.
Anything else?
I know what's actual definition of conflict, but let me think back when I didn't know that. At that time I thought like conflict is good for nothing. So yeah, it's something really like it doesn't belong to professional world.
Yeah. Just thinking really what Baruch just said, like it doesn't belong to professional world. But you can't avoid it. It just keeps happening everywhere and all the time. So what you can influence is your behavior or the emotion you will put into solution, resolution, etc. But you can't avoid conflict.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel for you personally when you are in conflict? What sort of emotions, feelings are there?
Usually always it's frustration and anger.
Mm-hmm.
And because I am like self-observer, let's say, and I can really detect my emotions, like I'm just being angry or I'm just being frustrated, then immediately I'm trying to not resolve, but like investigate why am I having those feelings, so I can, whatever comes out of the mouth, right, would not offend the person, but really that I need to be open to listening and then maybe rephrase whatever I want to say out loud because I don't want to hurt that person. Or
frustration.
But that's usually my always those emotions whenever there is a conflict. Or sadness. Sadness.
Okay. Okay. Where does the sadness come from?
Like if someone raises a voice on me and it sort of creates also sadness in me. What does it evoke in you?
Conflict for me, it's a neutral word. Conflict means that there is something to solve. And that's what the definition of a conflict is, actually. It's a sort of a disagreement between people, usually. So those are like the two requirements you need to have for that. One of them is the tension, that you have some sort of idea or something you want to achieve. And there is this contraindicative idea, belief, thought, which is coming either from outside or from within you. So you can have a conflict within yourself, of course, but that's the other part, the relationship, like, okay, you need to have a relationship with somebody. either with you or with some other individual or with a group or groups between groups, and then you can have a conflict. If this relationship is not there, for example, I can't have a conflict with my prime minister until I meet him, because until then we don't have a relationship, and we can't disagree. Actually, I can say my point of view out loud, but that's not a conflict. That's like a statement or a problem definition.
But the way you deal with the conflict right now, that's right now, or it's going on like let's say years?
It could be both. Conflict could be a generational conflict.
No. I mean the way you were dealing with conflict. So you ask me what emotion it stirs in me when we say the word conflict, and you gave us your answer, but to me it sounded more professional. So I'm asking whether it's because of all the experiences you have right now, or if we go back. That because I remember, and now I don't know whether that was conflict, but I remember years back that whenever there was challenging situation, conflict, whatever, you always behave through humor. That like I never saw you angry, but I always saw you like putting some kind of like a joke or something humorous. Not always it was appropriate, but that was your reaction. So I want to know what changed.
Well, when it comes to conflicts, you have various ways how to deal with the conflict or how to diffuse the conflict. There are a few. There are basically two ways how you can actually deal with the conflict within you. One of those, or actually three. One of those is constructive, so solutioning. Like, okay, so let's discuss it, let's solve it. That's of course the healthiest way. The assertiveness and all this stuff. Looking for compromises and everything. But then there are two ways, whether you push the other person, so you become angry, or you actually pull yourself out of the situation. So there is this avoiding all of the situations. Humor is sort of avoiding the situation because you are moving away from the problem, moving away from the conflict, and trying to put it aside, like, everything is beautiful, So we are not having a conflict, we are having a fun. I am in the avoidance more, like I'm one of those guys, like if you have a conflict with me or something like that, I'm gonna avoid you. I'm not gonna pick up your phone call, answer the door or whatsoever. That's sort of my response, that I'm avoiding all of this.
I'm so lucky he still picks up my phone.
So Kovacs, I imagine there is like a healthy version of conflict, a more constructive one, and there is more destructive one, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's about the conflict itself. It's about the behaviors behind handling the conflict, like just what I described. All those either pushy behaviors when you are aggressive and dominant and everything like that. That's not constructive. The same goes for the avoiding. If you are not picking up the phone or trying to get outside of the communication or not communicating at all, those are sort of not healthier, I would say, and they are more into like we are not solving it, we are avoiding altogether or trying to solve it in some unhealthy ways. Like it doesn't bring any assertive solution, constructive solution at the end.
What would you suggest to people who have problem or who have difficult time dealing with conflict constructively? What would be your tips?
There is tons of literature on conflict management. So first of all, I suggest you to find out those, read out those. That would be the first way. And what's mostly written there are like three things. First, you should know your mindset. When the conflict arises, you should know what is your setup. Okay, so I know that, for example, I'm aiming for win-win situations. And when the conflict arises, I want to find a solution which is suitable for us both and nobody is losing. So searching for the compromises. This is something which you develop. The other part for the conflicts, if you are overreacting or somehow having these avoidance issues like I do, it's good to have introspection into yourself. For example, a great exercise for this are the hot buttons. So go out, Google it out. Hot buttons is exercise where you're trying to list out all the keywords you are really sensitive to. Like you hear those, and this is automatically what it is for me. Like for example, somebody says this was bad works. It means for me that I failed as a person, which is not true, of course, and that's triggering the conflict with me because my barriers go up. Like I am a good person, and you don't know what a good work actually looks like. So that's mostly play a game with the exercises when it comes to mindset and those convictions we have about the world, like how we think that the world is working, those rules we set up for ourselves. Still, the best exercise for these are therapies and actually living it through, having the experiences going through. So not even watching, reading, listening, whatsoever, living it through is the best way how to actually improve when it comes to conflict handling, if we say it like that.
And we can really say also, as the years will go by, and I really can see, and if I revoke some of the memories, how I solved few things back when I was 20 versus now, right? So also by really the experience and the years, it will keep changing and become better.
And also for people like me, what works is just stop in the first moment you want to react, especially if you want to react negatively in a conflict. Just stop and think a little. So, and then give yourself a pause if you have to.
Baruch, you slightly touched one thing. You asked about the constructive or destructive conflict. Like, what are the things about that? What are the pros and cons of having a conflict? I will ask it slightly different.
For me, the pros of the conflict is basically you'll find some new solutions that otherwise you wouldn't think about. So basically it's kind of innovation.
So to me, when you have said pros and cons, I don't know why, but it comes to my mind that it builds resilience. As you are exposed to it, it sort of, to me, builds a resilience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else?
For me, definitely something that is a drawback of conflict, no matter how constructive it is or how not constructive it is. For me, it's like anxiety-inducing thing. Because at the beginning, I still have that, spike of adrenaline. People say it's good if it's not often and if it's not for like a long term. But yeah, I think depends on the person. But for me, any kind of conflict raises this kind of like stress level.
Okay. Anything else you think that this conflict is bringing us? So except of the resilience and this anxiety or stress.
I thought of one more that would be relationships. I think those relationships that survive conflicts, they will emerge stronger. So yeah, it would depend, but yeah, I think most of the time, at least in our culture, like when you have a good conflict with someone that gets resolved, the relationship gets stronger at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That just put me a thought, like I'm literally start thinking between three of us, as we know each other years, what kind of conflict did we have that we still keep going, going strong, keep fighting.
I'm not saying like you need to have conflict to have strong relationship, but you can have a stronger relationship if you have a conflict.
Now I was really thinking of like some situations of where I might have a conflict, but I'm really more focusing rather on the word conflict is the emotion, right? So I remember when our big boss was trying using coaching on me, which I hate, and that's not a method to use on me. And I still remember the anger that it was with me. But it taught me one thing, that I literally don't allow people to coach me. As soon as I see they're applying coaching on me, I immediately sort of like raise a hand and I go, please don't, that doesn't work on me. I'm looking either that you tell me potential solutions or provide me maybe a name or someone that I can brainstorm with. But please stop using coaching on me because it just creates an anger within me. So it sort of taught me to speak up so I can move on. Otherwise, I would stay frustrated for a very long time and not moving anywhere.
Yeah, what you said is totally correct. Like what you Kat said about the resilience and this sort of anger, or I would now make it more constructive. It told you what are your boundaries and you express them. That's what conflict is good for. Like when conflict touches you, you know that it touched some of your values. If there is some sort of emotional response like this, you know that it's triggering your values, something what you hold dear to you. So you know that, okay, I need to overcome the situation, somehow express myself to feel good again. And the same goes for what you, Baruch, said, that thanks to conflict, the relationship can be stronger, not just stronger, I would say even more creative, because you need to, and more understandable, because you need to find the common understanding between yourself. Like, okay, so what is it that we are striving for? Because that's the stepping ground or stepping stone for you to find a solution. So once you understand each other, you can find a solution. And that's why you actually have this better trust or higher trust level, I would say. Plus you are more creative because you know you are looking for solutions which are fitting both of you. So that's how we can use the conflict, or how we can understand the conflict actually in a more positive way, we call it. I'm trying to avoid the word positive because this is what the conflict is, and we can look on it this way. The last thing though is that not all the conflicts are the same.
So we have different types of conflict.
Yeah, we have different types of we have different types of conflict, like Baruch said. Have you, like, can you name some, like we got here, what you said that, okay, we're disagreeing about something and trying to find, or the conflict helped us to find some creative solution. Or the conflict was there, I felt angry and I expressed myself, so I was trying to protect myself. We already, from these two already events, you see that it's not the same type of the conflict. One of them was more about the values, because I've got conflict because I was coached and I don't like it, and that's my personal value. The other one was that we needed to focus on a solution, and we had a conflict related to something else. So those two already types which you sort of described is a task conflict. That's what Baruch described. We have a problem with some work or some task, some job which we need to perform, complete, and we found a solution. The other one is relationship based or relationship conflict. Okay, so those are about values, about how we are treating each other.
To me, this is interesting because when we tie this together with critical thinking and 5 whys, usually 5 whys, they tell you to go not just to 5 whys down, but even further until you find a problem with a person. So if some conflict is task related, doesn't it mean just on a deeper level there is a conflict on interpersonal level, that you just didn't uncover the problem?
I'm gonna agree here. It is in certain level always, like when you go deep, you always dig that I have some sort of preference, perspective, and it should be done this way whatsoever. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the conflict itself is between the values. Like if I have a problem with this presentation, it doesn't mean that I have a problem with you.
Right.
So if I don't like the presentation, if we go deeper, it doesn't mean that I don't like you. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, okay, so you can do 5 whys because you will discover that I had a different perspective, I had different expectations, and yes, the problem is there, sort of, or the conflict might be that my expectations collides your expectations, but at the end, the conflict is about that I don't like your presentation, like the first sort of level. So this is how the conflicts are actually characterized based on, I would say, the upper levels, not the deeper levels, if about the expectations, stuff like that.
So are there any other types of the conflicts besides of the task and relationship?
There are many.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Altogether, I've read about 7 or 8 types of conflicts. The most common, however, in the workspace are this task conflict, the process conflict, and the relationship conflict. I know that there is a value conflict, there is affective conflict, and I mean like 2 or 3 more, I think. But those are not that prevalent in workplace when we are talking about it. And
in that case, you would tackle these different types differently, I imagine.
well, definitely, and all of them have a different cause, and all of them have a different solution. When there is a task conflict, you need to decide how the task is performed or completed. You know, like, okay, I don't like your presentation. I'm gonna influence, or we are gonna solve how to make the presentation likable, or solve this sort of a task here at hand. When we are talking about processes, it's about how we are doing things, and these are most critical in the teams, because when you tackle the process, everything crumbles. You know, so if the whole process, how we are doing compliance, or how we are building web pages, or how we are, I don't know, handling our clients, and we disrupt that, the whole process, the whole performance of the team and of ourselves decreases, of course. And the last one is about values and actually who we are all together. So I don't like working with you because you are too much or detail oriented, or I don't like you because, or I don't like working with you because you are like not timely enough, you are not structured. That's the relationship part. You know, you can't hold your words, promises. I am not able to work with you.
To me, this one sounds the most difficult to solve. So I wonder if you have any tips.
It depends on your position. Because when I was a manager and my team leader had different style, and it didn't suit me. I was in conflict with myself. I had to have like a conversation with myself to go like, let that person deal with it the way he or she wants to deal with it. Focus on the outcome. Because every person is an individual. It was super hard, but I sort of had to say it out loud like this to myself. Because it was my own conflict. He was okay, right? He was doing it the way he wanted it. So it was just really my own thing. And of course, then when you see the outcome, it's sort of something like it just highlights you made the good decision or the right decision. Continue like that. Rather have that one-on-one with yourself, but let people do it the way they prefer.
I would go for 2 more things. One of them is to have understanding that no one is acting in a harmful way to you. Like that the person is not structured, and maybe the person is not replying to you, but it's not because they want to do you any harm, or because they want to, like in 99% of the cases, they don't want to do any bad to you. Usually it's about their character or their fears, their behavior, whatsoever, something. And they are striving to be the best version of their self. So realizing that's like another point there. The other one is that if it's too much, talk to that person, because it could be a blind spot for that person.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find a way, once the discussion is open, you can find a way how to mutually understand yourself. And as we were talking about, finding the creative solution, how to work together. Okay, so for example, if the person is not structured enough and can't do metrics, and the metrics is really important for you, you will be doing the metrics and the person will be just sending you the data and you will be filling the tables whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is double check if the person was actually educated to perform.
That's already like asking about it. That could be a blind spot, like if they didn't ask, that's the blind spot.
Because that's something I see many times, that they put someone here, do it, but they somehow didn't give that person handover or didn't teach him on how. That's 90%. So.
Him, her, on how. That was nice.
They didn't teach them on how to perform that specific task. So it's very high likely that maybe that's why there's the conflict, that the person actually doesn't know how to do it.
And if everything is at stake, like the person doesn't want to change, doesn't want to cooperate, you can't handle it, you can't bear with it, well, there are the doors, and you can never see them and talk to them again, basically. That's also an option. If you can't...
Can escalate them.
You can escalate them. Oh, yeah. Then there are all those manipulation games comes, and somebody's trying to get rid of somebody else. Hey.
We talk about similar situation in our previous podcast, so you can listen to that one.
On escalation or on the on the manipulative games?
On working with people you don't want to work and become your manager.
That's few words before we close. The easiest conflict to handle is a task conflict, because you need to find a solution that's the best option and easiest to solve. But what is actually the hardest is still related to task conflict, because what was found in studies is that one of the enemies of conflicts or enemies of teams' performance is when people replace task conflict for relationship conflict. That's what we mentioned. Like, okay, somebody doesn't like my work, and it means they don't like me, or they think that I'm a bad person. When you replace this is even worse than having a conflict as a process conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So be mindful about when somebody comes to you, and that's also related to feedbacks, when they're giving you feedback about something, telling you that something needs to be changed or something like that. It's not about you. It's probably just about a specific task, about a specific subject, and it's nothing related to you.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when these teams were actually observed, teams who can handle this are more creative and they are much more productive. They even actually create the conflicts within themselves regarding tasks, so they can actually improve their creativity or actually find out of the box ideas.
So guys, today you've heard many things about conflicts, as well as what kind of conflicts there are, pros and cons, and many, many more. Hope you liked it. You can leave us a comment, right? You can write us, let us know. And with that, 수고하셨습니다.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This podcast represents our own opinions, experience, and our own ideas. We do not represent any official statement from our employers, and this is not their official channel representing the company.